Hiya guys, how you doing? Welcome back to this motion tracking session. In this session I'm going to be showing you how to track your first shot with the motion tracker inside of After Effects and how to apply that motion to a text layer which I've created. So the piece of footage I've got is from Pexels videos, royalty free. I'll supply the link in the description below. So go ahead, grab that file and import it. I've got mine in a composition, so let's first of all just play through the file. You'll see that essentially this is just a piece of time-lapse footage of the Eiffel Tower. So it doesn't look like there's a lot of motion, but there is a fair bit of motion. If we zoom in on the top of the Eiffel Tower, but here I'll place my, you can see, I place my cursor on where the top of the Eiffel Tower is, and it drifts away and drifts to it and stuff. So you can see there's obviously a lot of motion there, and it's actually quite shaky because it's a time lapse that's, I think, been done on the water, a series of still images. So if I zoom back out, if I were to place this piece of text in there, you'll see that when I put this text in there, it doesn't move with the Eiffel Tower. Now it's going a bit slow now, so just let it preview through once. But what you'll see is that the Eiffel Tower is moving, but this Paris, France text, let's zoom in again, you'll see that this isn't moving with the Eiffel Tower, and that's kind of what we want it to do, okay? So what I'll do is I'll pop back out, and I'm gonna delete my, well, don't need to delete my text there, actually, I'll just disable it. Okay, so what we want to do is you want to make sure that you've, actually I'll delete it, so this is where you guys start. So I'll select my piece of footage. On the right, you'll have a load of menus over here. One of them is called the tracker. If you can't see it, just go to Window and just make sure Tracker is enabled. And here we go. Here we are. Now, we've got a series of different buttons here. The one we're going to be concerned about, if we want to add an element and have it have the same movement, the one we want to select then is Track Motion. So if we click that, what you'll notice is we're now in the Layer panel, because we've had this little timeline pop up down here. So this is our composition panel, and when we go into the tracker and click Track Motion, it just pops us in here. And we've also got this funny looking square in the middle. Now you can move this round. It is a little bit tricky to move around. If I was trying to move it around from out here, I'm probably not going to be able to do it. See, I've just moved this little X, and you don't want to do that. So in order to move this round, you want to click in the inside square, but not on the X and not on these little points. It is a bit annoying. But what you can do is you can kind of scale these up. As I scale the inner box and push it further, you'll see it scales everything up. So now we can zoom out and kind of move it a little easier, okay? Now just a brief description. This inner box, okay, this inner box by here, this is what we are telling the software to lock onto. And remember, it has to be something that's got at least a little bit of detail or contrast in. Now I'm going to go for my first point to the top of the Eiffel Tower, because that's if we move the box around, you've got a little magnifying glass. Now what that is, that's a sort of contrasting point against a nice blue sky, so it should lock onto there. And I'm just gonna, this little feature box, I'm just gonna make it a little bit smaller so it knows that we're locking on just to this area. Now this outer box, this is the area that the software will search for this feature in. It won't search the whole piece of footage because that will take too long. However, if you were to set this very, very large, it will take a long time to track. So basically, this is the feature box, the bit we're locking onto, and this is where this is the area the software will search for it in. Now, if you end up leaving it like that, you may end up getting a dodgy track that doesn't stick. So just make sure you give it enough room, because frame by frame, it's not going to move very far. But you just want to make sure that you give it enough room. Okay, so that's my first point. What we want to do is this. If you just do one tracking point, it'll only track the position, and we also want to track rotation and scale. You'd probably get away with a 1-point track in this because I don't think there's no scale really, and there's also probably not a lot of rotation at all, but it's just in this instance I'm gonna enable rotation and scale. Now when I do that, we get this second tracking point pop up. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to match move the Eiffel Tower, because that's where we want to attach the letters to, the text to. So what you don't want to do is attach this tracking point to, say, this pylon, because if we scroll through the footage, you can see that the pylon actually moves a lot faster than the Eiffel Tower, and that's purely based on parallax. Now, parallax, like I've explained in earlier videos, parallax is where things closer to the camera move faster and things further away move slower. If you think about going down the motorway or the highway, the street lights passing you go through very fast and trees in the distance go slower. So as we're tracking the Eiffel Tower, we want to make sure that both points are attached to the Eiffel Tower. So I'm going to go and get this contrasting corner down here. Let's zoom in, lock onto that area, and maybe go a little bit wider like so. And also, because I've moved my time indicator, so on 1 second, my track may slightly be off. Yeah, so I'll just move it a little bit back to the center like that. Okay, now that we've set that up, what we can do is we can tell the software to analyze forward. Now, because I'm at 1 second, I'll have to analyze forward to generate the keyframes from 1 second onwards. Then I'll have to come back to here and analyze backwards. So if I click, you'll see that the software will play the footage only in the layer panel, and these little tracking points are now sticking and moving to those points, and it's recording any position data, scale data, or rotation data. Okay, and now it's done that, we can see this by clicking the layer and hitting U. Okay, and basically it's generated all these keyframes, and it hasn't done it before 1 second because, like I said, we started at 1 second and analyzed forward. So now if we go back to the 1 second, analyze backwards, once it's done, you'll see that it'll generate a load of keyframes for you by here, like so. And if we zoom in, we can do a quick little check, scrub through just to make sure this is the path that it follows. We can just make sure, mine's not the best quality because I'm recording, but you can just scrub through or give it a play and just make sure that these points do follow those markers. Now, I'm pretty confident because I've done this before that mine will, and yeah, so I'm just gonna live with that. Okay, so what you've got here is you've generated tracking data. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to create a null object, and I'll explain what they are. First of all, I'll go to Layer, New, and Null Object. Now, a null object is essentially a completely empty layer, even more empty than a solid, because solid layers have color information. A null layer has absolutely no information, and we want to take the keyframe data from this piece of footage and we want to apply it to the null. So with your footage selected, go to Edit Target and we'll select null 1, and that's telling the software all this data, shove it over to the null 1 object, or that's our target for all this information. Then click OK. Next thing you've got to do is you've got to go to Apply and just make sure X and Y is selected, and then click OK again. And what will happen now, we'll jump back into the composition window automatically, and your null layer now has this position, scale, and rotation data. And if you scrub through, you can see, if we look at rotation, it starts off on 79.9 and ends up on like 81.2. So there is a little bit of rotation in there, and there is a little bit of scale in there as well, very minute. But yeah, we've got the 3 pieces of data here, and that's all very well and good. But it gives us this little square, and we can see that that square moves. Again, mine's not the best quality because I'm recording, but that square moves with the Eiffel Tower. So the final thing you need to do is create your text. So I'm just going to get my text tool, and I'm going to type in Paris, comma, and then hit enter. France. I'm not from France, by the way. I just found this nice piece of footage, and it's quite easy because there's not a whole lot of movement in there. So for your first motion track, it's quite a nice one. I'm just going to make this bold, Paris bold, like that. And, you know, if we play it through, the word Paris, France, still doesn't move with it. What we've got to do is we've got to take our text layer, and this could be a picture. Maybe you've motion tracked a wall and you're putting graffiti on there. It can be anything. We want to go into our parent link options, and if you can't see them, just click toggle switches, and if you still can't see them, just right click, go to columns, and make sure parent and link is ticked. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can either go to your text layer or the layer that you've added and go to this drop down and click null 1, or you can get this little pick whip, this is called the pick whip tool, and click and drag and link it to null 1. The same thing will happen. Now that we've done that, let's give it a little preview through. I'll have to wait till mine kind of loads in. You can now see that the word Paris and France, Paris and France, they have some movement to them, and they're moving along with the Eiffel Tower. To illustrate this better, I'm just going to move my text closer to it, like so. Okay, and now we'll play it through, and you'll see that it moves with the Eiffel Tower, which is awesome. So you could go ahead and you could do this with not just a text layer, with any image, anything like that, anything that you import, any element. And again, you may not be using this footage. The footage link is in the description to give it a go. But as long as you are picking a feature which has enough contrast and detail, making that search area big enough, and you should have no issues. So I hope you picked up some stuff from that and learned how to pull off your first match move. So cheers for that. If it helped, give a comment, like, subscribe, and all that. And hopefully I'll see you in another tutorial. Cheers.